Let's talk about pawn creation. The same set of guidelines that I recounted regarding height and weight of the Arisen apply to the height and weight of your pawn companion. If you haven't yet seen that video, I urge you to go back and review the discussion on height and weight. Pawns aren't affected by hard mode the same way Arisen are, but they still use stamina for their skills. Overburdened pawns will resort to using the skills that require the least amount of stamina. For myself, I always choose a medium-tall, medium-weight pawn. Those options are sufficient to take me to post-dragon, after which I purchase the Secret of Metamorphosis, where I can further tweak height, weight, and gender if need be. After you've chosen the appearance of your pawn companion, you're going to be asked a series of 4 questions which will determine how your pawn will act in battle. These sets of behaviors are termed inclinations. The 9 inclinations are Scather, Medicant, Mitigator, Challenger, Utilitarian, Guardian, Nexus, Pioneer, and Acquisitor. Let me describe in very simple terms what each inclination does. Scather pawns target the strongest foes and may be more aggressive in fighting. Medicant pawns are concerned with HP, healing, debuffs, and may stop all actions to attend to them. Mitigator pawns target the weakest enemies. Challenger pawns target ranged, magical, and perched enemies. Utilitarian pawns are concerned with tactics and better teamwork. Guardian pawns guard the Arisen. Nexus pawns guard ally pawns. Pioneer pawns scout ahead, and sometimes they linger to kind of look behind. Acquisitor pawns gather items even during battle. There's far, far more to inclinations, but what you should be most interested in now is setting up your pawn for success early. Certain vocations pair well with certain inclinations, but at this point, you may not have decided what class you want your pawn to be, let alone where you both are going. If you wish to know more about the inclination system, then check out my video on inclination potions under the hood. With those simple definitions out of the way, let's look at how the choices you make for your new pawn might look. For example, a Scather pawn heads into battle first and attacks the deadliest threat. For a mage or sorcerer, this might not be such a great position to put them in, as they might get targeted and their spellcasting interrupted. A fighter or warrior with melee skills would be best suited as a Scather pawn. Pawns with ranged weaponry, such as bows and staves, would fit the Challenger role well. Challengers target ranged, perched, and flying enemies. However, if you plan on changing your pawn's vocation at level 10 to an advanced vocation not related to the previous one, such as from mage to warrior or strider to fighter, then this might not be as wise a choice as it first appears. Fighters and warriors don't have the best weapons and skills to attack such perched, flying, or magical enemies. Mitigator pawns tend to go after the weakest foes, such as goblins, bats, wolves, and spiders, to name just a few. While your pawn learns its trade and accumulates bestiary mastery, and this is the term for enemy knowledge, this might be the wisest choice of all. Both melee and ranged pawns do very well with this behavior early game. Similarly, a pawn that has a great deal of knowledge about the enemies, along with several skills that can take advantage of those weaknesses, might best be suited as a utilitarian. However, brand new pawns don't have that amount of sophistication, so this isn't an ideal choice right away either. Makes more sense later once your pawn has more skills and knowledge. This is more of an endgame inclination. Be aware that your actions in-game, such as the overuse of pawn commands, the pawns you hire, and the enemies you engage with, as well as how you behave in battle, all affect the behavior of your pawn. Although you can adjust your pawn's inclinations later with the use of elixirs, Jonathan, the pawn who sells those elixirs, isn't immediately available, especially for players doing extensive early game exploration and who are holding off on going to Grand Soren. Jonathan will appear in the encampment once the quest, A Rude Awakening, has been completed. Inclination potions cost 250 Rift Crystals to purchase. These elixirs can be duped at the Black Cat in Grand Soren, located just down the street from the barber shop. You can use something called a knowledge chair to change a pawn's second and third inclination, but first, let's set up the pawn's primary one. Overall, it's best to choose offensive inclinations, such as Scather, Challenger, or Mitigator, rather than defensive inclinations, such as Medicant, Nexus, Guardian, or Acquisitor. Utilitarian is best suited for pawns with a high level of area, quest, and bestiary knowledge, while Pioneer pawns are ones that seem to do well up to mid-game, provided they are geared up correctly with suitable augments and skills. Experienced players rarely hire Medicant, Guardian, Nexus, or Acquisitor pawns, and that's just something to keep in mind. So let's look at the set of questions and determine what the best starting inclination is for any new pawn, no matter the vocation you initially pick for them. There are 4 questions with 4 answers each, and each answer modifies all of the 9 inclinations differently. Question 1 asks, when faced with danger, which trait would you most value in a follower? A, an iron will, B, quick thinking, C, careful preparation, or D, the charisma to lead others. As I click on each response, I can see the different inclinations going up and going down. So for the purposes of my pawn, I'm going to pick B, quick thinking, as this promotes Challenger and Mitigator, with Mitigator slightly ahead of Challenger. Question 2 asks, while in battle, which strategy would you prefer your follower employ? A, kill all enemies, B, rescue comrades in danger, C, strike at the strongest foes, or D, call for reinforcements. Again, as I click on each answer, I can see some inclinations go up and some fall back. And so, for the purposes of my pawn, I picked A, kill all enemies. This promotes Scather the most, but also promotes Challenger and Mitigator, and it's why I pick it for my pawn at this point. Question 3 asks, your follower rescues your party and turns the tide of the entire battle. What would you have them say? This way, master. Or B, leave them to me. C, now master, strike the final blow. D, quickly, after them. Using the same rationale as before, I'm choosing C, and that's because it promotes Mitigator. For question 4, I'm going to use the same rationale that I used before and look for the trait that I want to promote, which is Mitigator, and therefore I'm going to pick B. No matter which vocation you pick for your pawn, we're going to use something called the knowledge chair to fine-tune your pawn's behavior. The knowledge chair allows you to change your pawn's second and third inclination. These chairs are scattered throughout Grancis. We're going to visit the one in Cassardus. When you use it, you can also alter their personality and chattiness. I recommend you do not turn off pawn chatter and pawn subtitles initially, although you can later in the option menu. Pawns will share general knowledge of the area, relay enemy weaknesses, and offer tips for completing quests. Their talkativeness also clues you in as to what quests you have highlighted at the moment, serving as sort of a check for what you need to do or not do next. In this example, you can see what my pawn's personality will be, her general demeanor as we travel together. You may see something different when you first sit in the chair. However, you can also see my pawn asking me if I want her to have Scather as her second inclination or Challenger. Since I'm planning that my pawn will be a warrior next, I will leave her as a Mitigator, Scather, Challenger. If your pawn will be a Strider or Mage at first, then you would be best served by picking Challenger as the secondary inclination. The knowledge chair allows us to swap the second with the third, but has no effect on the first whatsoever. These inclinations are by no means locked in for the rest of the game. As I stated earlier, the player's actions in battle, pawn commands by use of the D-pad, the pawns that I hire, as well as the enemies we encounter will shift her inclinations up or down. But for starting the game, this setup works well to keep my pawn sufficiently engaged in battle by first attacking the weaker foes, then subsequently the stronger ones, all while she gains more bestiary knowledge and upgrades to skills and augments. I hope you found this short introduction to creating your pawn, as well as setting up initial behaviors called inclinations, helpful. I offer more detailed videos on how to use inclination potions, use of the knowledge chair, as well as endgame guides for various pawn vocations. Thanks, and don't forget to leave a comment and thumbs up below if you found this helpful.